South Park. If you haven't seen it, you've at least heard of it. I mean, I'd hope so at least. It's one of the most popular shows of all time and my personal favorite. At the time of writing this, South Park has 328 episodes and a handful of Paramount exclusives, and while I could sit down and rank each individual episode against one another, that's for another video that'll get put out whenever I finally finish that. For now though, I thought it'd be fun to sit down and check out the best and worst episodes from each season, at least according to IMDb. From there, I'm going to pick out my personal favorite and least favorite episodes from each season because this is my channel and I'll do what I want. Suck it. For the sake of keeping everything compact and releasing in a timely manner, I've split this up into 3 separate videos. This video, part 1, will cover seasons 1 through 8. Part 2 will cover 9 through 16, and part 3 will cover all of the remaining seasons and the movies. That way, this doesn't take months to make, and I can get feedback from you with each video so that the quality can continue to improve. With that though, I'm supposed to remind all of you to subscribe if you like this kind of content, because begging for subs actually works for some reason. Alright, let's get into it. Starting with Season 1, we have Episode 13 and the season finale, Cartman's Mom is a Dirty Slut, with an IMDb score of 8.6 out of 10, and for good reason. The episode centers around Eric's quest to find out who his father is. This all stems from the fact that Eric's dad isn't in the picture, so he has no one to celebrate Father-Son Day with. Oh, did I say quest? Well, it's more like a giant laundry list of names that Eric's mom has slept with. It goes something like this. Eric's mom says it's a Native American named Chief Running Water. Chief Running Water tells Eric that his mother is referred to as
Bear with Wide Canyon,
and directs him to see Chef. Chef says that Eric's mother preferred Mr. Garrison over him, but Mr. Garrison proclaims that literally everyone at the 12th annual Drunken Bar Dance has slept with her. This leads Eric to seek out Mephisto, that weird DNA dude who lives in the mountains, for DNA testing. The episode is left on a cliffhanger with all of the potential fathers, including the entire 1991 Denver Broncos roster, gathering around for the test results, before the narrator tells everyone that the answer is coming in 4 weeks. Spoiler alert, the father is actually his mom, who's a hermaphrodite. Early South Park was so chaotic, I swear. The worst episode of Season 1 is Episode 5's An Elephant Makes Love to a Pig, with an IMDb score of a 7.4, and oh boy is it something. It starts off in peak Cartman fashion with this absolute banger of a one-liner. The gang's waiting at the bus stop when the camera shifts and you see Kyle holding onto a fucking elephant. I mean, come on guys, it's in the title of the episode. But yeah, Kyle's got a pet elephant for some reason. Got it by mail order from Africa and everything. Oh, and Cartman's got a pot-bellied pig, because fuck it, why not? Matt and Trey must have been messing around with these reveal shots because there's another one right after that made me choke on my coffee. The bus pulls up, but Miss Crabtree won't let the elephant on because it's, quote, the new retarded girl. Because of this, the elephant has to ride the short bus, which is where the pan shot comes in. Listen, I get it's not a joke for everyone, and by today's standards, it's incredibly offensive, but good God did it make me laugh when I first saw it, because we've all been there. We were all in elementary school and middle school once, we all saw the short bus, we all had our little friend groups, and I guarantee you every single one of us has made a joke saying their friend belongs on the short bus. And for any of you grandstanders out there, you're the person. Anyway, after learning about crossbreeding in school, Kyle wants to breed his elephant with Cartman's pig to make pot-bellied elephants, which leads them to Dr. Mephisto's genetic engineering ranch. He's doing work that'll change the world for the better, with 4-assed monkeys, 4-assed ostriches, and a 4-assed mongoose. This guy's killing it. Unfortunately for the boys, the pig and elephant DNA won't splice, leading them to seek out Chef, who gives them an idea to help the animals make sweet, sweet love. Back at the ranch, Mephisto is able to use some of Stan's DNA from a blood sample, which he uses to make a Stan clone. There's this hilarious part where the kids try to get the animals drunk and Elton John just appears and starts singing to help set the mood. It's so over the top and stupid. Anyway, the Stan clone ends up escaping from the engineering ranch and starts terrorizing the town of South Park before Mephisto saves the day by shooting it. At the science fair, Cartman's pig gives birth to a pot-bellied pig that looks like Mr. Garrison, implying that Mr. Garrison was clapping some bacon cheeks. This is definitely one of the more unhinged episodes in the entire series, and it feels out of place with the rest of not just the season, but the show as a whole, and it looks like the audience generally agreed with that. Coincidentally, this is also my least favorite episode of the season as well. Onto my personal favorite though, episode 2, Volcano. Volcano was the first episode of South Park that I ever watched as a kid. I remember flipping through channels one day, eventually ending on South Park, thinking it was another Nickelodeon show, only for my world to implode. The episode starts out with the boys going hunting with Stan's Uncle Jimbo and his friend Ned, who talks using a shitty voice box that makes him sound like an off-brand text-to-speech drone. The initial few minutes seem pretty tame, until the group finds a Rocky Mountain black bear, which leads to what I think is one of the funniest scenes in the episode.
My God, it's coming right for us!
When I say this is something that's lived with me my entire life, I'm not kidding. I still laugh every time I watch it. My friends and I still say it when we play games like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto. Hell, even the NYPD adopted it as their slogan. This entire moment is amplified when Jimbo sees a deer and calls for a 46 gauge, only to pull out a rocket launcher and yell, "It's coming right for us!" I can only imagine the death threats they received from PETA after this. Cartman also tells everyone he served in Vietnam, and he keeps that up the entire time. It's just peak South Park. If those shenanigans weren't enough for you, Volcano is also the episode that Randy Marsh is introduced. Believe it or not, kids, but before Tegrity Farms, Randy Marsh was just a background character, and actually one of the more logical people in South Park, working as a respected geologist. After discovering that Mount Evanson is about to erupt, we learn that the boys are camping on it. Most of the story here centers around Stan dealing with the fact that Jimbo seems to like hanging out with Kenny more than him. This all stems from the fact that Stan didn't want to shoot an animal at the beginning. Now, Randy serves as the hero of the episode, as he's the one who comes up with the idea to build a trench to save the town from lava. Well, kinda. The lava ends up taking out Denver, but who cares, the Broncos suck anyway. Kenny initially survives the eruption, but gets shot after Ned drops his gun at the end. Volcano is one of my favorite episodes of the season, and one I hold in high regard, even if it's incredibly stupid. And if you're already down in the comments shitting your pants over it, lick dicks, this is my opinion and I'm standing by it. Season 2's highest rated episode is Spooky Fish, coming in at an 8.4 out of 10. It's the Halloween special of the season, and oh my god do they come out swinging. For starters, they just keep rotating shots of Barbra Streisand on the screen at all times, for the entire episode. I wish I was joking. So what happens in it? Well, the episode opens up with an alternate reality Cartman with a goatee. This isn't the main plot though, it's just one of those things where there's a constant flip between the real Cartman and the fake Cartman throughout, and the boys can't figure it out until the end. The real story centers around Sharon getting a visit from Aunt Flo, who gives Stan a pet fish as a present. Stan thinks it's spooky, but Sharon, who's been taking ventriloquist classes, isn't buying it. Stan puts the fish in his room and everything seems fine at first, until Stan looks over and there's a whole ass body in the floor in his room. Sharon does the psychopathic thing and hides the body while telling Stan how good he is. This happens again and the entire process repeats itself. The next day, Officer Barbrady comes to take a look around the backyard and Sharon fucking kidnaps him and locks him in the basement. Hands down the best part of the episode for me is Chef's costume. It has nothing to do with the story, but just look at it. Okay, so the boys finally confront Aunt Flo, who tells them where she got the fish from. While the boys are trying to find out exactly where that location is, just pay attention in the background. The boys end up finding the shop where the owner tells them that it's just like all the other returns, only for the shot to pan out to reveal a bunch of demonic animals. It's here where you find out that the shop pulled a poltergeist and built the place on top of an Indian burial ground. There's even a door portal thing like the closet in the movie. Good times. It's a good episode, but to me, I was a little shocked to see it at an 8.4 considering some of the other episodes of the season. The worst episode of Season 2, and the entire series so far, is Terrence and Phillip in Not Without My Anus, coming in at a measly 6.2 out of 10. This score is a little misleading, but also fairly accurate. See, this is the first episode of Season 2, and South Park fans were expecting the follow-up of the Season 1 finale, Cartman's Mom is a Dirty Slut, but instead, they were blessed with a full-length Terrence and Phillip episode in its place, forcing them to wait an extra week before finding out who Cartman's dad really was. It's worth noting that this was an intentional joke and the episode was released on April Fool's Day, but it was still a whole fiasco when it first released, and this is one of the lowest rated episodes in the entire series. I don't feel like I need to give a full breakdown because I don't think this is anyone's personal favorite episode, but I'll give a quick TLDR. Terrence's daughter is kidnapped in Iran, but the duo find her in Iraq. When they get home, they find out that this was all a big plan formulated by their arch nemesis, Scott. This guy. which culminates with Saddam Hussein invading Canada. This all leads to Terrence and Philip using chemical warfare via farts to kill Saddam Hussein. I wish I was kidding. But that's the charm of Terrence and Philip, if you want to call it something. But yeah, understandably, the dumbest episode of the season, and not really something I would even consider to be part of Season 2. Episode 4's Chicken Lover comes in at an 8 out of 10 on IMDb and is a big Cartman episode. I mean, most of South Park in general are Cartman episodes, but this is the big one where he drops the famous line.
Respect my authority!
Outside of that, this episode is a bit difficult to talk about without the entire video getting demonetized, which is a chore in and of itself. So I gotta kind of beat around the bush a bit here. There's a big crime scandal in South Park. Something is, choking the chickens, if you catch my drift. Someone's doing that thing where if Chris Hansen walked in, they'd be asked to take a seat. Got it? Alright, sweet. Well, whoever was doing it left a note at the scene, but there's only one problem.
Alright, I can't read!
To address the Barbrady predicament, the mayor sends Barbrady back to elementary school to learn how to read, causing Barbrady to enlist Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Fat Ass to help figure out who's doing this. And as everyone was expecting, Cartman takes it a bit too far.
Sir, step out of the car, please.
With the boys' help, Barbrady learns to read and they're able to catch the chicken choker, who's just the librarian dude at the beginning of the episode. It's all a bit strange, but a good episode nonetheless. Not counting the Terrence and Philip episode, my least favorite of the season is episode 7, City on the Edge of Forever. While on their way to school, the psychotic bus driver detours the bus off a cliff, into a river, then off that river, past some tourists, and onto the edge of another cliff. Most of the early portion of the episode is just them teetering off the edge of this cliff, and it's all centered around Miss Crabtree yelling and threatening to kill a bunny. She ends up leaving to go find help with all the children trapped on the bus. But with nothing to do but wait, the gang starts reliving flashbacks from Season 1. Now while all that's going on, you get to follow everyone's favorite character, Miss Crabtree, as she travels around South Park just screeching at anyone she finds in an attempt to get some help. Eventually, the bus just falls directly into a giant tub of ice cream, only for it all to be some dreamception bullshit where it's like Stan's dream of Cartman's dream. It's all really strange, but yeah, that's the episode. Season 3, Episode 11, Chinpokomon, is the highest rated episode of Season 3, hitting an 8.7 out of 10 on IMDb. The entire plot is basically, what if we took Pokemon and slapped it in South Park? And holy shit, does it work. I want to set the record straight. I love everything about this episode. It's not my favorite of the season, but it's definitely number 2. There's a new Japanese game in South Park, and Cartman is exactly what every kid was like when we all heard about Game Boy Colors and the wonders of collecting Pokemon on them. Even Kyle's on board with it and buys one, though he's late to the party and doesn't really understand the hype for them. There's only one downside with the Chinpokomon. They're trying to brainwash kids into bombing Pearl Harbor. No, like, there's a moment in the video game Stan, Cartman, and Kenny are playing where they have to literally try and bomb Pearl Harbor. Good times. It's like War Thunder before the leaks. As the episode goes on, the characters slowly transition to be more anime-like with their faces and talking habits. At one point, just full-on speaking Japanese in the classroom. All of this culminates with the children being turned into Japanese pilots, tasked with, you guessed it, bombing Pearl Harbor, before their parents figure out what's going on and foil the plot by simply pretending to show an interest in Chinpokomon, immediately making it the lamest thing in the world to all of the kids. Just a great episode, and one that I could watch over and over again without ever getting tired of it. Much like Season 1's worst rated episode, Jackophsaurus is my least favorite on Season 3, as well as being the lowest ranked episode. I promise this only lines up a few more times, but I don't think this one was much of a shocker. It's one of the lowest rated episodes in the entire series, coming in at a 6.4 out of 10, just barely beating out Season 2's Terrence and Philip stinker. Okay, so the boys are camping out in the mountains. After writing America's next big hit single, Cartman wanders off to take a shit and ends up discovering a Jackophosaur. These things are so goddamn annoying. I also don't think I can show it because it's naked and has tits, so if it's blurred, that's why. Anyway, they're thought to be extinct, so now that they found one, a bunch of scientists get to work trying to breed the species so it can recover. Much like the viewers, all the townsfolk find these things incredibly annoying because, well, I mean, do I have to play another clip?
Lisa needs a jack-off.
To get rid of these things, the town stages a game show which is fixed to help the jack-offisaurs win so that they can win a trip to France. And that's it. This is my least favorite episode of the season as well, since it's just annoying. The funniest moment of the episode for me is right at the beginning when Cartman is singing and playing the harmonica. Everything after that is just downhill. Outside of whatever that was, Season 3 is really solid. It was a lot tougher to pick a favorite than I was expecting it to be. There's so many good episodes in this season, and I was pretty torn between the likes of Sexual Harassment Panda, Two Guys Naked in a Hot Tub, or even Chinpokomon. But I had to go with episode 3, Succubus. For those of you who know the episode, I think you already know why, but for those of you who don't, allow me to explain. The boys show up at school one day to find out that Chef has quit after falling in love with some broad named Veronica. Mr. Garrison thinks she's a succubus, which is just a demon that sucks the life force out of you, if you know what I mean. Long story short, that's exactly what she is, and the gang figures out if they sing a song in reverse, they can kill the succubus, and Kenny in the process. But it's not the story that makes the episode my favorite. And it's not Mr. Derp, or the fact that Cartman gets bullied by the optometrist, and spends most of the episode with his pupils fully dilated. It's entirely because of Chef's family. They're easily the best characters of the episode. They refer to the boys as young crackers, and the dad just tells the story of the Loch Ness Monster the entire time, with one of the more memorable lines of the early seasons found here.
Instead, I need about 350.
It's been like 25 years since this episode originally aired, and me and my friends still, to this day, still say this shit to each other all the time. This also begs the question, is that really the main reason that this is your favorite episode of Season 3 over the other ones you listed earlier?
You're goddamn right.
The best episode of Season 4 is Episode 5. Cartman joins Nambla with a 9.0 rating. Cartman feels like he's simply too good for his current friend group and heads out to find a new one. Thinking he needs a more mature friend group, he decides to look for them on the internet. The second best place to look, right behind the Catholic Church Altar Boy School, I guess. Well, as you can probably figure out, he gets spammed with a ton of Jared Fogels after joining the Men Who Like Young Boys chat room. Things are looking pretty good for Cartman though. He gets to meet some new friends, they buy him a bunch of cool shit like the Kama Sutra, but the only downside is that they keep getting taken away by the FBI whenever he goes out to meet them. That's where Nambla enters the picture. Who are they? Well, the North American Man-Boy Love Association. Duh. Cartman, who's loving all the attention Nambla gives him, accepts the offer to become the poster child for the organization. Oh, and while all this is going on, Kenny's parents find out they're pregnant again, and Kyle and Stan pass the time by making faces at a bunch of dialysis patients. After an FBI sting operation goes wrong, shocker, we learn that there's another Nambla in South Park, the North American Marlon Brando lookalikes. So what's going on with the Cartman Nambla? Well, there's a little Scooby-Doo style chase scene here where the FBI is running through all the doors looking for the Nambla members, only to catch the wrong Nambla group again. It's just that wacky charm, but, you know, with a group of Jared Fogels instead of someone committing tax fraud. There's a pretty good moment at the end here as well where you think they're gonna let the Nambla guys go, only for Kyle to say exactly what everyone is thinking.
Dude, you have sex with children.
Time for the worst episode on the list, and most people's least favorite episode in the entire series, mine included. Season 4's episode 14, Pip. It's got a 6.6 on IMDb, and it might as well just be a 4. The entire episode explores Pip's background, which is just Great Expectations. You know, that Charles Dickens novel? Yeah, well, it sucks. It's not really funny at all, there's no good moments in it, and none of the main characters even make an appearance. Pip is an orphan, much like in the book, who's sent to a boarding school to be raised as a gentleman. When he returns home, the lady that sent him away wants him to fall in love so the princess child chick can break his heart. I don't know, it's really dumb. No one likes this episode. Can we skip it? Awesome. Moving on to my personal favorite episode of the season, we have Probably. It's the second half of a two-part story where Chris and Saddam Hussein are fighting for Satan's love and affection. What a weird sentence. Anyway, while that's going on, Cartman has started his own church and it's beginning to grow. Just seeing Cartman as a preacher is fucking hilarious to me. And then you have Cartman's mom trying to get him to stop, and it's just the weakest attempt. The children end up building a new church while Cartman starts getting calls from Kenny, who seemingly died in the last episode, but is actually just in Mexico, which, I mean, same thing, right? Cartman ends up using that to keep scaring the kids, which is also just so damn funny. Then he starts to proclaim that he can heal people, but it's just him slapping the shit out of the kids who need help with something, and it turns into one of those Southern Baptist churches where the preacher gets the Spirit of God in him and gets Parkinson's for a few minutes while everyone dances and screams amen. It's good stuff. While that's going on, Satan visits God in heaven, which is apparently just for the Mormons. Alright, back to Cartman. He's rich now. Turns out if you yell and run around in the confidence of a decorative building, people will chuck money at you, and it's all tax-free. To overthrow Cartman, they bring in Jesus, who just tells the kids to go back to school and have fun. With the kids gone, Jesus teaches Cartman a lesson by sending him someplace worse than hell. Satan ends up breaking up with both Saddam and Chris before sending Saddam to heaven to be with the Mormons. It sounds wrong, but if you flip it, it's actually Saddam's worst nightmare and more of a personal hell for him than the actual place he was living in. Season 5 is the first time where I fully agree with the top-ranked and worst-ranked episodes of the season. For the best, you have Episode 4's Scott Tenorman Must Die, with a 9.6 out of 10 on IMDb. It's one of the highest-rated episodes in the entire series, and it should come as no surprise. Matt Stone and Trey Parker even admitted in an interview that the only reason they made this episode was to show just how psychotic and truly evil Eric Cartman is as a character. Now, if you're watching this on a streaming service, or anything other than the DVD set, this is actually the third episode, as the original third episode was blocked from airing due to it showing a depiction of Muhammad. I'm pretty sure Johnny Two Cellos or Blooms has already made videos on this if you're curious about it, and I probably will at some point, but that's for another time. So why must Scott Tenorman die? Well, it all starts with Cartman bragging about his pubes to the boys. Only they're not his. They're Scott Tenorman's, who he bought them off of for $10. Now that may be gross, but don't worry, it gets so much worse. Cartman tries several ways to get his $10 back, such as showing up at Scott's house pretending to be an IRS agent with Scott's pubes just glued to his face. Anyway, Scott just kind of outplays Cartman at every angle here. Just watch this.
Just give me the $6, and then I'll give you the 20.
Okay.
Now, give me the pubes, and I'll give you back $2.
Right.
Now, give me the 12 cents, and I'll give you the rest of your change back. And then give me the 20, and I'll give you the pubes.
Sweet.
He even tricks Cartman and sends him all the way out to Fort Collins, forcing Cartman to ride 106 miles home in the back of a pickup truck. Cartman even pulls out the big guns and says they're gonna put his grandma down unless he gets his money back, and Scott makes him beg for the cash only to light the money on fire. So, to get him back, Cartman concocts a plan to train a pony to assault Scott, where you get a key piece of info about Mr. Jenkins.
Oh, well, does Mr. Jenkins know you're using his pony? He shoots trespassers on sight, you know.
Stan's Uncle Jimbo and his friend Ned help Cartman plot revenge on Scott by doing some reconnaissance with him, where you learn that Scott loves the band Radiohead. This is all actually just a ploy by Ned and Jimbo to get to see Scott's mom's tits, which coincidentally half of the town is also doing, which I thought was hilarious. But anyway, what does Cartman do with this information? Well, he voices over an interview with Radiohead to try and make Scott cry, only for Tenorman to best him yet again by showing a video of Cartman begging from earlier in the episode, which causes everyone to bust out laughing, killing Kenny in the process. He then lets it slip to Kyle that he's been training a pony at Mr. Jenkins' farm, who warns Scott about the plan, seemingly foiling it yet again. As that wraps up, Cartman invites Scott to his chili con carnival. Scott asks his parents to go get the pony to stop Eric's plan and flip it on him, before heading out to see his friends who are busy making a chili mixed with all of the pubes of every kid in town. Nice. When the two sit down for the cook-off, Scott tries to reveal it to Cartman, only for Cartman to be the one who calls it out, having switched his with Chef's right before the cook-off started. It's here that Cartman's full plan is revealed, and oh my god, is it some Silence of the Lambs level shit. He explains that he knew Stan and Kyle would betray him and warned Scott about the trap. Remember how, a minute ago, we just learned that Mr. Jenkins was a psychopath who would shoot trespassers on sight? Well, it'd be a real shame if someone had sent their parents there in an attempt to steal the man's pony from his backyard, wouldn't it? Especially if someone else were to warn Mr. Jenkins of violent pony killers in the area, i.e. Scott's parents. Oh, don't worry, it gets worse. See, they're at the chili cook-off.
Do you like it? Do you like it, Scott? I call it Mr. and Mrs. Tenorman chili.
He literally fed the kid his own dead parents disguised as chili. As Scott's having a full-on breakdown, like you do, his favorite band Radiohead shows up and calls him a crybaby to his face before leaving. In one final act of true psychotic display, Cartman quite literally drinks Scott's tears. It's one of those rare episodes where every single second is perfectly used. Every word means something, there's no filler in the entire episode. Every moment where you think there's a setup, it's just a decoy for the twist at the end. Just a masterpiece of an episode. Here's a good rule of thumb. If there's a Terrence and Phillip focused episode in a season, it's gonna be one of, if not the lowest rated episodes in that set. And season 5 is no exception. Terrence and Phillip Behind the Blow is meh. Don't get me wrong, a meh for South Park is still a 7 out of 10 on IMDb and better than most shows, but it just feels like a filler episode to me. It's a South Park episode, so there's still laughs and funny moments, but for a season with multiple episodes above a 9.0 and most above an 8.5, this one definitely stands out. The plot is focused on the boys trying to get Terrence and Phillip back together after the duo has a falling out. I don't really have much to say on it though other than that. Terrence gets fat, which is kind of funny, but it's played out right away. There's a few other funny moments, but those all come from the B-plot, which has to do with South Park getting taken over by environmentalists who just use the children as free labor. They also just cut Kenny's arm off at one point to give the kids some convincing. To bring the duo back together, the boys do a Behind the Blow episode of TNP. And it's literally just 5 minutes of Terrence and Phillip history. That's right, 25% of the episode is this one mini show talking about the history of Terrence and Phillip. And it sucks. I mean, there's some references to past South Park episodes and the bigger, longer uncut movie, but that's not enough to get me to sit through 5 minutes of exposition of 2 background characters. Season 6 has some absolute bangers. You've got The Simpsons already did it, A Ladder to Heaven, Asspen, Bebe's Boobs Destroy Society, and the return of the Fellowship of the Ring to the Two Towers, which conveniently is the highest rated episode at a 9.3. The return of the Fellowship of the Ring to the Two Towers is a spoof of The Lord of the Rings, told in South Park format, which just works out so damn good. And they do a phenomenal job later on in the show with the Game of Thrones episodes, but we'll touch on that in a different part. The show kicks off with the boys playing Lord of the Rings while Stan's parents rent something for themselves. Randy sends the kids on a quest to return the Lord of the Rings movie to Butter's house, but when he puts in his and Sharon's movie, it's revealed that he royally fucked up and switched the movies in their cases, leaving him with a copy of Lord of the Rings while the boys are in possession of a porno. Since literally no one knows this, the parents give the movie to Butters, who watches it and turns into Gollum.
Butters, what the hell are you doing?
Soon, the 6th graders get involved, taking the tape from the boys to reveal that they've been carrying a copy of Backdoor Sluts 9 this whole time. There's a great scene here where Randy and Sharon tell the other parents, and the dads just start ranking off other pornos while the wives look at them all disappointed.
I mean, was it like Crotch Capers 3?
I'm afraid it was Backdoor Sluts 9. Backdoor Sluts 9?!
While the boys try to figure out a plan, the 6th grader recruits all of the others in town to try and steal the tape from the boys. The council decides that it'd be best to just return the movie to the Two Towers video store, forming the Fellowship of the Lord of the Rings. By this point, Token has also seen the film and quits playing, causing the parents to try to talk to him about it.
And when the woman has 4 penises in her at the same time, then stands over the men and pees on them, is that part of being in love too?
And then when Token's dad finds out what movie it was, his wife just gives him the same look. It's just so good. Alright, back to the boys. They're on their way to return the movie when they're ambushed by the 6th graders. Jimmy sacrifices himself as the stand-in Gandalf while the boys escape, only for it to completely fail because he's Jimmy. By some miracle, the boys are able to return the tape and their parents come to save the day just as they're about to get beat up by the 6th graders. If the episode ended here, it'd be great, but being South Park, there's always a way to one-up the scene. And in this case, it's done by the parents thinking the kids had all been watching Backdoor Sluts 9, and then just info-dumping all of these kinks onto the boys who haven't watched the tape. It's just golden. None of that can be played though, or I'll be deplatformed, so just use your imagination or go watch it for yourself. There's 2 episodes tied for the lowest ranking of the season, Fun with Veal and Freak Strike, both at a 7.9 out of 10. I'll do a quick rundown of both and save some time, but don't expect any breakdowns or anything like that, just a light overview, starting with fun with veal. Stan learns what veal is and becomes a vegetarian. He then coaxes his friends into stealing a bunch of calves and takes them hostage in his bedroom. The parents try to starve the boys out, but Eric's mom just keeps sneaking them snacks and supplies. This leads to an epic multi-day standoff between the boys and the parents, the police, and the FBI, all culminating with them attempting to flee the area with Mr. Worf as their getaway driver. Naturally, they're captured, but not before it's revealed that the veal market has gone dry, effectively saving the calves in the process. Alright, on to Freak Strike. I personally really like this episode, but apparently that's a hot take. The boys disguise Butters as a mutant to go on the Maury Povich show and try to win some shit, only for Butters to win a free round of mini golf. This causes Cartman to act like a psychotic child so he can get on the show, which is hilarious in and of itself. While that's going on, there's a bunch of freak shows who make a living by going on the talk show circuits. So they end up going on strike along with Butters, who they haven't realized is just faking everything. The strike ends up working, but Cartman, pissed that Butters just screwed him out of a prize, rips off his fake face balls, revealing the con to all of the other freaks. But these guys are idiots, and think Cartman literally ripped the balls off of Butters, so they just go after him instead, allowing Butters to get off scot-free. Until he's grounded by his parents. My personal favorite episode of Season 6 is Asspen. The whole gang, including parents, head out to Asspen for some skiing. There's only one catch here. The parents need to visit a timeshare presentation, leaving the boys to do some ski lessons on the bunny slope. This is where my favorite part comes in. It's another classic scene that me and my friends still repeat to this day. Hell, I even mention it on streams and videos over on the main channel from time to time. Just remember not to french fry when you're supposed to pizza, or you'll end up like Ike. Back to the timeshare plot though. It's your standard run-of-the-mill timeshare pitch. And if you've never been to one of these, you may think it's a bit over the top, but I can assure you that's exactly how these things go. And you can trust me on this because when my wife and I went to Jamaica last year, she accidentally signed us up for one, and we had to sit through this same goddamn pitch for like 3 hours straight, and then they hounded us about it every fucking day for the entire week. Quite literally ruined the trip for us, so never go to one of these. They're so stupid. They're just for old white people to pretend to flex to their kids on Facebook with. Alright, back to Asspen. Your standard skier gets jealous of Stan and challenges him to a ski-off, naming him Stan Darsh. The parents finally get a chance to go skiing, and even get to skip the line to use the exclusive timeshare lift, only for it to deliver them right into another building for another pitch. Alright, back to Stan. He's challenged again, so he hits up the instructor for a Rocky-styled sports training montage. During the big race, Tad, the man who challenged him, is kicking Stan's ass until he's distracted by some titties, which, I mean, I feel that. This causes Stan to win and allows Asspen to keep their youth center. The parents end up buying a timeshare to come to Asspen 2 weeks every year, but the boys just kind of feel like everyone else when it comes to skiing. My least favorite episode is number 5, the new Terrence and Phillip movie trailer. Remember how I just said that all of these are my least favorite episodes? Yeah, I wasn't kidding, except this one doesn't really have all that much T&P to feature. The premise is simple. There's a new trailer for the Terrence and Phillip movie premiering during an Russell Crowe fighting around the world episode, forcing the boys and the audience to have to sit through it. That's not the only issue they face though, as they have to keep bouncing around to different people's houses to try and catch the premiere.
Hurry, we can't miss the commercials.
First, Stan's sister Shelly kicks them out so she can watch Buffy. Then Cartman fucks up the TV by trying to fix the color scheme. They head to Kyle's house, but get kicked out so that Ike can keep watching his show. This leads them to Chef's house, but Chef has a new fancy sentient TV that comes to life and starts terrorizing the town for the rest of the episode. After this, they hit up the bar, the retirement home, Cartman's house that's being fumigated, and a homeless person's TV, before settling on Butter's house. The Russell Crowe show is what really ruins the episode for me. It's just annoying, and I get that's the point of the episode, but it just kind of feels like every funny moment is short-lived when you have to go back to this dude. Casa Bonita is another all-time classic. It's got a 9.2 on IMDb, and I think it's one of the more memorable episodes in the entire series. Kyle gets to invite 3 friends to go to Casa Bonita with him for his birthday. But he doesn't invite Cartman because Eric's been an ass to him for ages, taking Butters instead. This causes Eric to craft a scheme where he effectively kidnaps Butters by convincing him he's in the beginning of Fallout 4 and having him hide in the nearby Doomsday bunker. Obviously, he doesn't tell anyone about this, so Butters doesn't show, and Kyle invites Cartman instead. Though that's short-lived, as Butters' parents think he's missing, which leads to Kyle postponing the Casa Bonita trip to help search for him. To prevent anyone from finding Butters, Cartman moves him from the bunker to a garbage dump, where he tells Butters he needs to rebuild society to keep him occupied. He also tells him that the world is infested with cannibals to prevent him from leaving the dump. This actually works at first, and Cartman gets to go to Casa Bonita with the gang, until Butters is found by Irene. The police contact Kyle's mom, who calls out Eric, but it's too late, and Eric sprints into Casa Bonita, eating some of the food, visiting Black Bart's cave, and diving off a waterfall. There's 2 episodes tied for the lowest ranking, those being episodes 15, Christmas in Canada, and episode 7, Red Man's Greed. Personally, I like Red Man's Greed more than Christmas in Canada, and since that's also my least favorite, we're gonna go through that one instead. It's Christmas, and Ike's birth parents show up to take him back to Canada with them. If you didn't know, Ike's adopted. I'd say spoiler alert, but this episode aired over 20 years ago, so suck it up. Also, he's Canadian. You should have been able to tell just by looking at him. Anyway, the boys go on this epic Wizard of Oz journey to bring him back home, just in time for Christmas, with Cartman threatening to kick Kyle's ass if they're not back in time to open up presents from Santa. Eventually, the boys manage to get Ike back after uncovering the truth that the Prime Minister is actually just Saddam Hussein trying to take over Canada yet again. There is one absolutely fucking hilarious part in this episode though, right at the end where it's officially Christmas, and since the boys aren't back home, Cartman threatens to beat up Kyle, only for Kyle to just lightly tap Eric, causing him to scream and cry for his mom.
Come on! Come on!
I really struggled with picking one for this because just like season 6, it's got some amazing episodes. You've got Raisins, Little Crime Stoppers, Christian Hard Rock, All About Mormons, and Fat Butt and Pancake Head. But ultimately, I settled on Grey Dawn. Mainly because I can't stand old people, and this episode is all about old people stereotypes and them taking over South Park. There's also a moment in here that I'll always remember over most other episodes. The old people in South Park are out of control, and much like the rest of the world, they can't drive. They keep running over people while on their way to Golden Corral. This leads to an old people meeting where they form a plan to stop the town from taking away their licenses. While the rest of the town slowly realizes what's going on, it's too late, and all the old people leave at the same time, running over and killing dozens of people. So this is the scene where I'm talking about. The boys are playing street hockey, and you just see Randy in the distance running towards them and trying to warn them. I don't know why, but it's so fucking funny to me. And then Cartman sees it and just goes,
Looks like Stan's dad's been hitting the bottle again.
and it's just the funniest thing to me. The outcome of this is that old people all get their licenses taken away. To retaliate, the AARP invades South Park, just like Red Dawn. Who are the AARP? Well, the American Association of Retired Persons. They quickly take over the town and force all of the parents into internment camps while the boys manage to escape. This is where Cartman comes up with a plan to destroy their food supply, the Golden Corral. To everyone's disbelief, it actually works, and the National Guard are able to come in and round up all the old people starving to death as the Golden Corral isn't open right when they wake up. It's all around a really stupid episode, but it's full of funny moments like a grandma firing a rocket launcher at the National Guard and other dumb shit like that. Going into season 8, South Park really hits its stride here. There's 3 top-rated episodes this season, and up until this point, none of the previous 7 had more than 1. There is one that stands out above the rest though. The top-rated episode of season 8 is episode 5, Awesome-O, where Cartman pretends to be Butters' robot friend. It's a fantastic episode and one of the highest rated in the entire show's catalog, matching Casa Bonita from last season. The whole premise of the episode is that Cartman's trying to find the hidden dirt Butters has on him, being Cartman impersonating Britney Spears in his backyard and making out with a cutout of Justin Timberlake. There's some wacky shit going on where he becomes a comedy movie idea dispenser, where he just pumps out a ton of Adam Sandler movies before being kidnapped by the US Army, which is pretty funny. After being captured, Eric accidentally blows his cover by farting, which leads to Butters exposing him to the entire 4th grade class, meaning Eric just spent days torturing himself for nothing. It's another one of those episodes where Butters ends up on top over Eric. The worst episode of the season is, funny enough, episode 4, You Got F'd in the A. Remember a minute ago how I just said that season 8 is where South Park really hits its stride? Well, you can see that perfectly in the IMDb scores. This is the first season where all episodes are above an 8.0, with the worst of the season receiving a score of 8.1, almost 2 full points higher than some of the lower episodes in the early seasons. This is all following the big dance craze of the time like Stomp the Yard, and opens with Stan getting served by a dance crew. Randy teaches him how to retaliate, which is just southern line dancing, and the next time the crew comes over, Stan serves them back, which means it's on.
So now, I guess, it's on.
Stan needs to gather a crew for the big dance battle, so he recruits a goth, some dude shredding at Dance Dance Revolution, and a chick from Raisins. They try to recruit Butters as well because he's the best tap dancer in Colorado, but Butters is still suffering from PTSD on account of his dancing literally killing people at a contest. While all that's going on, Randy gets served and ends up in a hospital. In place of Butters, the crew recruits a dancing duck named Jeffy. On the day of the big serve-off, Jeffy sprains his ankle and can't compete. As the gang's about to forfeit, Butters comes in to save the day by accidentally launching his shoe into a stage light, killing all of the other kids. Alright, for the sake of the show, we all just need to agree that this is objectively a fantastic episode. Up the Down Steroid is about the Special Olympics. More specifically, about Jimmy doing PEDs in the Special Olympics and Eric pretending to be disabled so he can compete in the Special Olympics. And regardless of what you think of the word retarded, just set that aside for a few minutes and remember this aired over 20 years ago. The Special Olympics is coming to Denver, and Jimmy and Timmy are set to compete in it. Jimmy's approached by Nathan, who sells him PEDs to help with his training regimen. While that's going on, Cartman comes up with his quote, best idea ever, after learning that the grand prize for winning the Special Olympics is $1,000.
And a cash prize of $1,000.
The boys all condone it, but Cartman goes forward with the plan anyway. There's a whole montage of him researching how to appear handicapped, riding the short bus, practicing his facial expressions, and figuring out the perfect outfit. Guys, the first time I saw this, I'm pretty sure I pissed myself. It's just so far out of left field, and he just comes waddling up like, good God, man. Okay, so while Cartman's busy doing that, Timmy finds out that Jimmy has been doping. He doesn't tell anyone, but his Timmys are a little less Timmy and a little more Timmy, if you know what I mean. This leads to what was quite possibly the best part of the episode. Eric gets his mom to sign him up, but they're so ignorant that they don't know what to even lie about, so she just says,
He's retarded.
And look at that stupid fucking face he makes, dude. Okay, so the lady is like, no, what's his specific condition? And she just goes, oh, I'm not sure, sweetie, what's your condition? And Eric just says,
How should I know? I'm retarded.
listen, I've seen this episode hundreds of times. I still bust out laughing at that part. Every time. Every single time. Not a single time have I not laughed. I had to stop and rewind this like 3 times while recording so that I could stop laughing and get the voiceover to not sound like I was having a fucking aneurysm. Alright, so Eric's all signed up and it's time for the big day. Jimmy is busy dominating the Special Olympics, setting all kinds of records and blowing everyone away, while Eric, on the other hand, loses every single event, coming in dead last. At the closing ceremony, they bring out all these famous athletes who did PEDs, like Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire, which is just hilarious. Eric ends up winning a $50 gift card to Shakey's for coming in dead last, but Jimmy calls him out for faking to try to get into the Special Olympics. Timmy then points out how Jimmy was lying the whole time, and he goes on to call people who cheat like that, which is made even better by the fact that the camera is just showing close-ups of all the baseball players up there to present the award who were busted for using PEDs. This is a controversial one, I know. Good Times with Weapons has a 9.1 on IMDb, and I feel like a lot of people really enjoyed this episode, but for whatever reason it just didn't gel with me. I think it's the partial anime art style or the fact that Butters spends most of the episode just bleeding out of his eye, and it's genuinely a bit pitiful. So the boys are at the county fair when they find a Weapons of Asia store and trick the sellers into letting them buy a ton of martial arts weapons. With their newfound toys, the boys set out to protect the world. And by that, I mean they show off their weapons to Butters, who reprises his role as Professor Chaos. When he confronts the boys again, Kenny just chucks a ninja star at him, which gets impaled in Butters' face. To avoid having to tell their parents, they dress him up like a feral dog by gluing fur and socks to him, only to immediately get distracted by fighting Craig's rival ninja gang.
Kyle, just humor.
Butters then takes himself to the hospital, only for them to actually mistake him for a dog. He's then sent to an animal shelter, where he's peed on by another dog. But as it turns out, they're not there to help the animals, just euthanize them. Butters ends up escaping and collapsing in front of all of the parents. Now, thinking on his feet, Kyle blames the fact that Eric practically streaked in front of everyone for his distress, which caused them to lash out at Butters, and most everyone gets off scot-free. It's a pretty abrupt ending, and only Eric really gets punished, which is kinda lame. Like I said, I know this is a beloved episode, but it's just not for me. I honestly think this is one of the only ones I really disagree with, though. It's certainly the highest ranking one to end up on the bottom for me, which feels a bit weird. I think that's a great place to stop for today, though. We're just under 1/3 of the way through the South Park catalog, and as a reminder, Part 2 will cover seasons 9 through 16, and Part 3 will cover 17 through 26, along with the movies, so you might as well subscribe so you don't miss out when those release. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, cheers.